What if the weight you carry, the anxiety that gnaws at your mind, the anger that flares without warning, the quiet despair that lingers in your chest isn't just a burden, but a message? A message from the deepest part of you, begging to be heard. We live in a world that demands perfection. We chase success, hide our flaws, and bury our pain. But no matter how fast we run, suffering follows. It's there in the sleepless nights, the strained relationships, the moments when you look in the mirror and barely recognize yourself. What if the secret to ending your suffering isn't found in escaping it, but in facing it? In diving into the darkness you've spent your life avoiding? Give me 12 minutes, and I'll show you how the teachings of Carl Jung, one of the greatest minds in psychology, can unlock the hidden cause of your suffering. This isn't about quick fixes or empty promises. This is about confronting the truth, embracing your shadow, and discovering a path to true healing. Stay with me until the end. Your transformation begins here. Suffering is universal. It doesn't care about your status, your wealth, or your accomplishments. It finds us all. Maybe it's the sting of rejection, the ache of loneliness, or the quiet voice that whispers, "You're not enough." For some, it's Laudera rage that consumes, a grief that paralyzes, or an anxiety that feels like drowning. But why do we suffer? Why does life, with all its beauty, feel so heavy? Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who revolutionized our understanding of the human psyche, believed that suffering is not a mistake. It's a signal, a call from the unconscious, urging us to wake up. Jung wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." In other words, suffering is the doorway to growth, but only if we dare to walk through it. Let's start with a story. Elias was 32, a man who seemed to have it all. A high-paying job, a sleek apartment, a calendar packed with meetings and social events. From the outside, his life was a success. But inside, Elias was unraveling. He couldn't sleep. His temper flared over the smallest things: a delayed email, a spilled coffee. He felt like a stranger in his own skin, haunted by a restlessness he couldn't name. One night, after a heated argument with his partner, Elias sat alone in his apartment, staring at the city lights. "Why am I so angry?" he whispered to himself. "Why does everything feel so empty?" That question was the beginning. It was the crack in the armor he'd built around his heart. And it's a question we've all asked in some form. Why do I feel this way? Jung would say that Elias's suffering was not random. It was his psyche crying out, demanding that he pay attention to the parts of himself he'd ignored for years. Jung called this the shadow, the hidden, rejected aspects of our personality that we push away because they're too painful, too shameful, or too frightening to face. The shadow, Jung taught, is everything we refuse to acknowledge about ourselves. It's the anger we deny, the fear we mask with bravado, the insecurities we bury under perfectionism. It's the parts of us we deem unacceptable, the parts we think make us unlovable, unworthy, or weak. But here's the paradox. The shadow doesn't disappear when we ignore it. It grows, it festers, and it finds ways to make itself known through our outbursts, our self-sabotage, our chronic dissatisfaction. Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." For Elias, his shadow was rooted in a childhood he rarely spoke about. Growing up, he'd been taught that emotions were a sign of weakness. His father, a stoic man, praised him for achievements but dismissed his fears, his sadness, his need for affection. "Be strong," his father would say. So Elias learned to bury his vulnerability. He built a life around control, ambition, and logic, believing that if he just worked hard enough, he could outrun the pain. But the shadow doesn't let you run forever. It shows up in the ways we least expect. For Elias, it was the anger that erupted when things didn't go his way. It was the loneliness he felt, even in a crowded room. It was the nagging sense that no matter how much he achieved, it was never enough. Jung believed that the root of our suffering lies in this disconnection from our true selves. When we reject parts of who we are, we create an inner split war between the person we show the world and the person we hide. This war is exhausting. It drains our energy, clouds our joy, and keeps us trapped in cycles of pain. But there's hope. Jung didn't just diagnose the problem, he offered a path to healing. He called it individuation, the lifelong journey of integrating all parts of the psyche, including the shadow, to become whole. Individuation is not a gentle process. It requires courage, the courage to look at the parts of yourself you've spent a lifetime avoiding. For Elias, this journey began when he stumbled across a quote by Jung: "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Those words hit him like a lightning bolt. He realized that his suffering wasn't something to fix or escape, it was something to understand. So he started asking hard questions. What was he afraid of? What was he hiding? Why did he feel so angry all the time? Elias began journaling, a practice Jung often recommended. He wrote about his childhood, his father's expectations, the moments he felt small or unworthy. At first, it was painful. The memories brought tears, shame, and a flood of emotions he'd long suppressed. But as he wrote, something shifted. He began to see his anger not as a flaw, but as a protectora part of him that had been trying to shield his wounded heart. Jung taught that the shadow is not our enemy. It's a part of us that longs to be seen, understood, and integrated. When we reject it, we reject ourselves. But when we embrace it, we reclaim our wholeness. This process isn't about becoming perfect, it's about becoming real. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." For Elias, this meant acknowledging his vulnerability, his need for connection, his fear of failure. It meant letting go of the image he'd built, the flawless, in-control professional, and allowing himself to be human. Jung's teachings go beyond the shadow. He believed that our psyche is populated by archetypes, universal patterns of behavior and energy that shape who we are. These archetypes, like the hero, the wise old man, or the innocent child, are not just abstract ideas. They're living forces within us, guiding our actions and emotions. When we suffer, Jung argued, it's often because our archetypes are out of balance. For example, Elias had over-identified with the warrior archetype, the part of him that valued strength, control, and achievement. But in doing so, he'd neglected the child archetype, the part of him that craved play, trust, and emotional freedom. To heal, Elias needed to bring these archetypes into harmony. He started small. He took up painting, something he'd loved as a child but abandoned because it wasn't productive. He spent time with friends, not to network or impress, but to laugh and connect. He even began therapy, where he learned to nurture the healer archetype within himself, offering compassion to his own wounds. Jung believed that archetypes are bridges to the unconscious. By engaging with them through art, dreams, or storytelling, we tap into a deeper wisdom that helps us navigate life's challenges. For Elias, painting became a way to dialogue with his unconscious. His canvases, filled with chaotic swirls and vibrant colors, reflected the inner turmoil he was working through. Over time, they became softer, more harmonious, mirroring his growing sense of peace. So, how do we end suffering? Jung's answer is both simple and profound: by becoming whole. This doesn't mean you'll never feel pain again. Life will always bring challenges, loss, failure, heartbreak. But when you integrate your shadow, balance your archetypes, and connect with the collective unconscious, you change your relationship with pain. It no longer controls you. It becomes a teacher, a guide, a catalyst for growth. Here are 3 practical steps, inspired by Jung, to start your journey. 1. Face your shadow. Begin by noticing the emotions or behaviors you avoid. Are you quick to anger? Do you feel ashamed of your sadness? Journal about these feelings without judgment. Ask, what is this trying to tell me? Over time, you'll see your shadow not as a threat, but as a part of you that needs love. 2. Engage your archetypes. Explore the archetypes within you. Try creative practices like writing, drawing, or dancing to connect with your unconscious. Pay attention to your dreams. Jung believed they're messages from the psyche. If you feel stuck, ask, which part of me needs attention? The warrior? The child? The sage? 3. Find meaning and connection. Suffering thrives in isolation. Reach out to others. Share your story, even if it's scary. Volunteer, join a community, or simply listen to someone else's struggles. When you connect with others, you tap into the collective unconscious, reminding yourself that you're part of something bigger. Elias's life didn't become perfect. He still had bad days, moments of doubt, and challenges to face. But he no longer felt like a prisoner of his suffering. By embracing his shadow, nurturing his archetypes, and finding meaning and connection, he discovered a sense of wholeness that made life feel lighter, richer, and more purposeful. Suffering is not the enemy. It's a messenger, calling you to wake up, to face the truth, to become who you truly are. Carl Jung showed us that the path to healing lies not in escaping our darkness, but in embracing it, in making the unconscious conscious, in becoming whole. Take the first step today. Pick up a pen, talk to a friend, or simply sit with your thoughts and ask, what am I hiding from? The journey won't be easy, but it will be worth it. Because on the other side of suffering is not just relief, it's transformation. It's the life you were meant to live. Give yourself permission to feel, to grow, to heal. Your suffering is not your fate. It's your invitation to become whole.